Greetings and welcome to Beatles Stuffology, where two old friends sit around and talk BS, Beatles stuff, on a track-by-track basis pretty much for the sake of it. My name is JG McQuarrie and I'm here with my co-host Andrew Deacon. Say hi, Andrew.
Hello, how are you? I'm in awe of your presence. I'm just going to keep talking, not let you get in, because I want to get this conversation around the fact that you are a star of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Well, star feels like a big word, but yes, I did perform at the Fringe this year. Obviously, it'll be long over by the time this episode posts, but thank you very much. Yes, it was thoroughly good fun. I had a great time doing it.
And don't just leave it at that. What were you doing?
I was doing a show called A Political Breakfast, which is a kind of panel show with three other comedians and a host. It's been running for quite a while. It's been reviewed in The Guardian, I discovered, which was slightly intimidating prior to my first appearance on it. But yeah, I've been doing that. It was really good fun, plenty of laughs. It was a full room, so it was great.
So can I just check, was it your episode, as it were, that was reviewed in The Guardian?
No, it had been reviewed a couple of weeks prior.
Oh, okay.
Down boy.
No, okay. All right, well, fair enough. Well, that's good. I mean, you... for the listeners, he did do a similar thing last year as well. And who knows, maybe he's going to be up for a prize next year when he takes his own brand of stand-up to the festival.
I am planning on writing something next year. So, yes, I don't think it's going to be straight stand-up, but I am definitely planning on doing something, more information as and when I've actually got around to writing it.
Well, I think the question that all listeners, and quite possibly Kenneth with the one N, wants to know is, are you thinking of adding in something Beatles related?
I think there will be definitely an opportunity to talk about the Beatles in the show that I'll be writing. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd be interested to know if I know that the majority of our listeners these days are from America, but if any of our UK listeners did go or perhaps know someone that went to see any of the shows at the Edinburgh Festival, because there were some that had very direct links to the Beatles. There was one which did get a very good review. Emily Wolfe drew connections between female adulation and of the Beatles and the shooting of Andy Warhol. So, it'd be nice to sort of get some more information on that. Although it does kind of fall into one of the things that just kind of irks me from time to time, which is this over-brainification, because I can't say intellectualization, of things what are fun. And I think nobody accused us of over-intellectualizing the Beatles.
No, I think we're safe in that.
I think we're very, very safe in that. But, there are times when you can get so close to something, that you dig so close to something that it can kind of lose its appeal. But that's fine. That's fine. I do also understand why people would want to draw the cultural value out of something that is so important to people, especially something that may have been quite pop culture at the time, but is attaining much higher status. Not necessarily through our podcast, but
hey, we're doing our best.
There you go. Yeah, I am. Dear listener, we are on. Perhaps we're demob happy because we're on to the end of Rubber Soul today, to the point where we're doing Run for Your Life. And when I was doing some thinking about Run for Your Life, I ended up going down a 1980s BBC sitcom rabbit hole, and looking into the work of the great comedy actor William Gaunt, because I have distinct memories of watching a sitcom. In fact, Martin Clunes was in it as well as one of his sons. I think it was called No Place Like Home.
Oh yes, I remember that.
At the end of every episode, it seemed that they would say, and William Gaunt is now starring in, and I can't for the life of me remember, but I'm pretty sure it was either When Did You Last See Your Trousers or Run for Your Wife. And I couldn't get that thought out of my head as I was listening to the song and reading up about it. So if I end up doing loads of misses type things and ooh, that's what she said, then that's purely because of what I've been delving into on YouTube in order to prepare for this episode.
Good. Well, I think we'll all be looking forward to that as and when the opportunity arises to hear them.
That's what she said.
Well, indeed. Good. Right. Well, shall we actually talk about the song now?
Yeah, if you like. Yeah. What
I
do
think
you
we
think?
probably ought to.
This is an easy song to. Right. Okay. I'm going to use a word that I don't think we've used before. It's easy to have a performative dislike of this song because of the lyric, and therefore to overlook lots of good things that actually occur in the song. That's my starting point.
Okay, that's a good place to start. I'm kind of on the same page with you as that. I think that there are definitely good things about this song, and one thing which, very clearly isn't. But I don't think that one thing should necessarily overshadow the virtues of what's going on elsewhere. So I think there are definitely points where we can mount some kind of defense or some kind of redemption of this song without simply saying, well, it's just words, it doesn't matter, because I think in this case it really does matter. But it's not the worst song ever, despite this author's assertion that it might in fact have been his worst song ever.
Yeah, but it's
just not.
It's clearly not. I think it's worth thinking about what it's similar to. Lyrically, it's obviously similar to "You Can't Do That," but musically, it's quite rocky in a way that "You Can't Do That" isn't. "You Can't Do That" is more sort of Smokey Robinson kind of thing. This is. This is fun, not lyrically. I'm going to have to, listener. Can we assume that if I say I like parts of this song and it's a fun, upbeat rocker, that what I'm not talking about are the lyrics here, and it's not an endorsement of the values of the Beatles or the lyrics of the Beatles in 1965. Can we? You good? Cool. Thank you. Right. It is fun. It's a really good up-tempo way to end the album. It's got some rocky element to it. You can sort of feel a country vibe in a way as well. It's got I think quite a interesting guitar line to it. That sort of descending guitar line really works for me. I think the harmonies are great. That almost kind of sort of falsetto harmony really works for me. I even like the fact it's got an interesting fade out with that the na-na-nas going on. It just feels like there's something that's gone on in this, that everyone's gone, okay, right, we're up for this, and which makes sense as it was the first song that they recorded for the album as well. Even though they knocked it out in super quick time, it feels like there's an energy there that McDonald seems to think isn't.
Yeah, this is definitely another one of those ones where I'm not really finding myself much in agreement with McDonald over this. I think you're quite right. I think there is a lot of energy and sort of vibrancy to the way that this song is recorded. And McDonald kind of takes the song to task for being sort of sloppy, slightly out of tune, slightly, not necessarily as well sung as some in terms of Lennon's lead vocal and all that. But I kind of think that's why it works. It's not tight, but it's got that slight sloppiness that for example the Rolling Stones do really, really well. Like that it has a looseness to it, which I think really helps the music to work. It's not, and I'm sure I'm not really surprising anybody with this information, it's not a complicated song when it comes to the music side. It's a little more than half a dozen chords. The structure is pretty simple. It's just verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, and then there's a couple of instrumental breaks. That's kind of it. But within that structure, it just kind of, it finds its own groove. And I think the way the song feels is it all hangs together very well. It's a relatively simple McCartney bass line, but I don't think you'd want anything more decorative than that. It's pretty much just sort of going a little bit up, going a little bit down, going a little bit up, going a little bit down. But that's fine. Anything else I think would sound fussy, or it would just kind of get in the way. I kind of like the sloppiness of the guitars. I like the two dueling guitars on it as well. We've got kind of callbacks in the guitars. That's really nice. It's a song that musically I think is pretty great. And like you said, yeah, this was the first song that was recorded, so it has a freshness to it that, looking back, particularly again over certain parts of the second side of this album, yeah, might be lacking in a couple of numbers.
So to make a slightly semi-obscure 80s reference, flaunt the imperfection.
Wow, yes.
And that's the bit that I don't get when people talk about, the guitar sounds a bit out of tune. Okay, my ears aren't trained enough to notice that. I like the guitar solos, thank you very much. I don't mind them. And he leans in, Lennon leans into the microphone too much, and there's pops. Okay, right, I just thought there was some added emphasis and energy and emotion, and it works for me. And that whole emphasis of end, the plosive on end really works for me.
It's punctuation. It's audible punctuation.
It makes it sound like it's a bit of a caricature, which is why. One reason why I don't think John Lennon is necessarily, despite the fact his assertion that, oh yeah, I write autobiographical stuff, brackets, except when I don't, close brackets. That's why I don't think he's thinking. It's not to say that it's okay and it sort of forgives what he's writing about, but I don't think he's genuinely thinking, oh, Cynthia, oh, run for your life, oh, gonna get you. I don't think he's expressing that anything he's feeling. It's a caricature, and I think that's where the playing, that's where the structure of the song falls into that. It feels like it's got the energy of people who are having a bit of an in joke, and I suspect that then when he came to talk about it later on, perhaps he was not so much embarrassed by the lyric, but embarrassed by the fact that they were joking in this way, that there is a jokey feel. And lest we forget, there was meant to be a jokey element to parts of this album. Drive My Car is meant to be the big joke, for example. So there is that beat, 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 yeah, funny. So it fits in with what they might have been thinking at the time. Caveat about the awfulness of the subject matter.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is sort of finding where you draw that line. It's not like it's impossible to have songs which are about violence in any sense. I mean, that's what murder ballads are. I literally have murder ballads by Nick Cave in my LP collection. It's like, if you wanted to kind of find another way of defending this, you could conceivably say, well, it's kind of in that vein, it's in that kind of tradition. And it has, that countryish feel to it as well, particularly with the slightly bluesy guitar solos and stuff like that. It kind of puts itself a little bit in line with that tradition. Now, to be honest, I think that's an overread. I don't think that's something that the band were consciously doing. Oh, we'll definitely put this in line with some Irish folk tradition of murder ballads or something like that. That's definitely not what they were doing. But it kind of falls into that sort of approach anyway. So again, if you wanted to find a way of justifying this, then you could do that. The lyric is obviously awful. And again, we don't have to say that every time we talk about it. I think we've made it perfectly clear how we feel about that. But I agree with you. I think there is an element of caricature to it. I don't think the way it's written is meant to be straight. It's meant to be a bit. The problem is Lennon kind of delivers it straight. There's not a lot of tongue in cheek with the way that he sings it. He sings it pretty straight down the line. It's pretty vicious in places, and so I think that kind of parodic side to it, or whatever you want to call it, kind of gets lost, and that is kind of on him.
I can't remember if we've ever referred to this before, and it would surprise me if we haven't referred to it, but my My supporting evidence for your point about country and western is the Billy Connolly country and western super song, which starts with oh, my granny is a cripple from Nashville. And
Oh, yes.
and basically it's all about this tragic story about basically people falling off the edge of a cliff. And the jokes are about people falling off the edge of a cliff. Although your point then is it's pretty clear from his delivery that it is designed to be a bit of a joke.
Well, yes.
So
exactly.
you're right, but I think sometimes that straight-faced delivery is all the more effective for accentuating the comedy, as the original Naked Gun films and the new Naked Gun film will probably testify, because there's a difference between Leslie Nielsen and Liam Neeson in that one knows that he's trying to be funny and the other one is playing it dead straight, and the dead straight is funnier. So I'm comparing John Lennon to Leslie Nielsen, and I'm not sure if that quite works, but let's just go with it for a moment, dear listener.
Okay, that sounds fine to me. I get your point about straight delivery, but I do think that is where the joke, if it is a joke, kind of gets lost. I think people do hear this lyric and the way it's being sung and take it at face value. I'm not necessarily one of those, but I think it's easy to understand how people could miss the point as far as that's concerned. And yeah, I mean, do you want to talk directly about the lyric now?
I mean, you can do, and because I think it is a really good point to make, that it's very easy for us, middle-aged white guys, tall middle-aged white guys, to basically go, oh well, we shouldn't know because he doesn't mean it. Actually,
that's what tall middle white class guys do.
I know, but when in reality, of course, if someone thinks that this is offensive, then it is offensive, and I'm not going to try and dissuade anyone about the way they feel about this song is not correct, because the way they feel
Absolutely.
about it is correct, because it's the way they feel. As ever, insert the thing about emotional response to popular culture. We're talking about my emotional response, and certainly when I was a lad, and I was listening to this for the first 50 times, it didn't occur to me that it would be anything other than a caricature. Of course, he's not going to mean this, but someone else comes along, and you can imagine. Oh boy, yeah, one of those expressions with all that's going on in the world today. There will be people who will take lyrics like this and see things in it that effectively supports their own worldview. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about people who may be the victims of domestic violence, but those who seek to justify domestic violence and murder and all of those sorts of things. And it's the old Al Murray pub landlord dilemma, isn't it? That he might write a joke which is potentially satirising the way in which certain views are expressed and thoughts are held, but he cannot control how people in his audience receive it. And if people take it as like an ode to masculinity and traditional British values, then they're going to do that, and that happens.
Yeah, or Alf Garnett for our older listeners.
Well,
but yeah, absolutely.
Alf Garnett, of course, in America, for our 58% of Americans, I think it was Archie Bunker.
Yeah, that's right.
So they might sort of see that, but good reference.
Thank you. The other thing to be slightly cautious about when we talk about the idea that maybe these lyrics aren't straight, or that they're a caricature, or that they're parodic or anything, is that, oh, I didn't mean it, I was just being funny, is also one of the first things anybody who is committing or does commit domestic violence is likely to say. And I don't want us to sound like we are going down that route or trying to justify or explain away something, but he was just being funny. That doesn't make it all right. So I just also want to lightly touch on that as well. Again, middle-aged white guy, it's not my place to talk about domestic violence against women, except to be supportive of people who have suffered from it. So So yeah, so it's just worth mentioning that as well, like the fact that he was the fact that one can say it's maybe trying to be funny or parodic or anything like that doesn't necessarily give it a pass, because that is often an excuse that actual abusers will use.
So let's then talk about the Elvisant in the room, which is
excellent work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Which is the key lines. I'd rather see your dead little girl than to be with another man, are taken from the Elvis song "Baby, Let's Play House," and I've spent quite a bit of time listening to that, and it's really good. I mean, it's really kind of very specific on the lyrics. It's basically a song that was written that says, don't get ideas above your station. Go to college, get a job. That's perfectly fine. But come back and play house. Effectively, come back and be the mother of my children. Now, this lyric actually occurs, so the reused line is actually used in the last verse. So it sort of, builds up in terms of that emotion, whereas Lennon takes it as his starting point, which
that
is
makes
quite
a
interesting.
big difference.
It does.
It really makes a difference of emphasis to have it kind of not buried at the end, but for it to be the thing that you approach rather than the thing that you encounter straight out the gate.
What's also interesting about the Elvis song is that I forget the name of the songwriter now, but when you then look him up, I'll admit it. I went on the Wikipedia page. Although it refers to him as an artist and a songwriter, it's the only song that gets mentioned. So this is the most significant thing that person created.
Arthur Gunter is his name.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I remember he died of pneumonia in about 1973, but I didn't remember his name. So
good to know.
Yeah, I know. So it is interesting that this is the culmination of someone's life work, and that it influenced then, the Beatles. And I think it influenced the Beatles song in more than one way. You spoke earlier about the fact that it's, it's verse chorus with 2 instrumental breaks. Well, guess what? So's the Elvis song.
Yeah, exactly the same structure.
It's really interesting. And as much as Lennon would have idealised, he probably did idealise him, but idolised Elvis, I suspect he wasn't necessarily going for, well, this is the thing in Elvis that I worship him for the most. He's clearly taken a memorable line. I'm doing it again. I'm kind of justifying it. But yeah, you're right. Then taking that and sticking it where he does is, yes, an unpleasant thing. But then you mentioned that he said it was the worst thing he'd ever written.
Well, his least favourite Beatles song, yeah, I think that was in a Rolling Stone interview.
Okay. Was that one in the early 70s?
Yeah, I think it might even have been 1970, but yes, it's definitely early 70s, yes. Okay.
Which is interesting. So to go back to the David Sheff interview, the Playboy interview, there's perhaps some sort of discussion you can have about that. He's asked about Run for Your Life, and he just says, just a sort of throwaway song of mine that I never thought much of, but it was always a favourite of George's. Okay? And then he talks about he just says, it has a line from an old Presley song, I'd rather see you dead little girl than to be with another man, is a line from an old blues song that Presley did once. He has an opportunity to discuss the tone of the lyrics there, but he just refers to it as a throwaway song I never thought much of. And that could be, I never thought much of as I didn't like it very much, or I never thought much about it. It can be either or quite probably both. I do think it's interesting that it's a favourite of George's, because, not necessarily the best reputation when it comes to... and am I going to get sued by the estate there with the ladies? Who's not necessarily always been the politest and most aware of people's feelings, shall we say, and always had a slightly kind of harsher, bitter edge to his karmic philosophy.
Very, very diplomatically phrased there.
No, I'm not sure about that. We'll see. But the reason why that was particularly interesting, because they were trying to do this, they don't, but they were trying to do this interview in some sort of chronological order. Not that long after, a few minutes after, they discuss getting better. So we've skipped, we've been through Revolver, and now we're on to Pepper. And he says, it's a diary form of writing. All that, quote, I used to be cruel to my woman. I beat her and kept her apart from the things that she loved was me. I used to be cruel to my woman and physically any woman. I was a hitter. I couldn't express myself and I hit. I fought men and I hit women. That's why I'm always on about peace, you see. It's the most violent people who go for peace and love. And I thought that was really, really interesting because he had an opportunity to talk about to talk about that a few minutes before, and he didn't. And I suspect my feeling about that is that it was a throwaway thing that he was writing, and it was more the Elvis influence rather than the self-explanation.
Well, I think that also helps to support the theory that he's writing a character in Run for Your Life rather than writing about himself, because when he does talk about a song where he's clearly expressing himself personally, he dives into it. But when he's just talking about this song, which was just a throwaway, he doesn't bother. So I think that probably does help to support that interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely.
For what it's worth, that Rolling Stone interview from 1970, I found the direct quote. So what he said was, I never liked Run for Your Life because it was a song I just knocked off. It was inspired from, there is a very vague connection, from Baby Let's Play House. There was a line in it. I used to like specific lines from songs. I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man. So I wrote it around that, but I didn't think it was important. And then it was actually in an interview 3 years later where he said it was his least favourite Beatles song. So just to clarify that as well. It wasn't the same interview, but he did say it. So that's where that came from.
Which is fine, because opinions aren't always fixed and you can forget things and remember things. And, I sometimes joke about Lennon and his capacity to say one thing one day, something else the next. But, you can feel differently about things based on how you're feeling at that particular point in your life. Maybe he'd had a good therapy session at that point. Yeah. In terms of the lyrics, it's pretty simple and it's straightforward. It is dark. It is dark. You know that I'm a wicked guy and born with a jealous mind. And it's that, and we've seen that before in this album, haven't we? That the emphasis is on, look, I know I've got a problem, but if you do something, then it's going to exacerbate that. Let this be a sermon. Sermon's an interesting word, isn't it? I mean everything I said. Baby, I'm determined and I'd rather see you dead. Said and dead is, it's quite a good rhyme. But that whole thing about let this be a sermon, well, earlier it's like, well, you know that I'm a wicked guy. I'm sure there are some university departments that would have great fun with that as a juxtaposition.
Well, indeed. It's that I mean everything I said is the other thing that mitigates against the idea of forgiving this lyric, because it goes out of its way to say I mean this, which is not helpful to any sort of redemptive case, but it does put that emphasis there. For what it's worth, also I just mentioned this in passing, but that line, I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man, is a much more flagrant steal than here comes old flat top, he come grooving up slowly. But people almost never talk about it, and presumably the estate of Mr. Gunter never sued him for it either. But I don't know. It just struck me when I was listening to this earlier on today. It's like it's not even slightly rearranged grammatically in order to try and get away with it. It's just a straight line, and it's much more blatant than Come Together. Although it's not like Come Together is exactly mysteriously hiding itself either.
When did the Beatles meet Elvis?
It was slightly before I think this was recorded.
Okay.
I think it was very close to this being recorded, which may
Yeah.
indeed be why Lennon had Elvis in his mind.
You are
But
correct.
it was 65.
27th of August 1965, and they were
There we
in the
go.
studio, October? October 65? Yeah, 12th of October 65. You imagine if they'd met after the album had been released. Well, firstly, I wonder if Elvis ever listened to the Beatles. And secondly, you just imagine what he might have said. Especially as he was a man who was not exactly unknown for carrying certain pieces of hardware around with him that he could use to intimidate whenever he wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, which is sometimes used as one of the reasons why he never toured overseas, at least. Working out who was going to carry A, his drugs, and B, his guns.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was wondering, by the way, we often talk. Well, I do, I guess, about the fact that there are lots of great songs that have crap lyrics. They just do. The lyrics aren't.
Yeah.
The lyrics are never as important in most cases as the sound that they make and the image that they create without listening to it too closely. I was trying to work this out. Are there any songs that have amazing lyrics but are shit?
That's a good question.
That's one to come back to.
Which you sprung on me without any warning, so I don't have an immediate answer to that question.
And
I'm
listener,
sure the answer
any
is yes.
thoughts, listener, as well? If you want to send in any examples of great lyrics on terrible songs, but yeah, which again is going to be very subjective. So maybe pocket that one for another day.
Good. Yes. Obviously, my mind is now just flipping through songs, going, "Would that qualify?" But I'm going to try and stay focused on what we're actually supposed to be talking about, which obviously we're very good at.
Do you remember how the teenage JG responded to this song when he first heard it?
Yes. Because I think it's a song I've always known the reputation of. I came to Rubber Soul relatively late in my sort of flip through the Beatles sort of back catalogue. And I think, I don't want to say this for 100%, but I think I read an article about it. Maybe it was in the mid 80s, maybe it was 85 if it was like 20 years from the album or something. And it would probably have been in, maybe that's too early for Q magazine, but maybe it would be like Enemy or Melody Maker or something like that. And I think I've always kind of known the reputation of the song, but then actually listening to it, I have always responded to the music in it. I've always kind of, whenever anybody talks about Run for Your Life, the general reaction is a lot of heavy sighing and eye rolling. And I've always kind of thought that was a little bit unfair to the song because I kind of always liked it. I'm sure I was not as terrifically self-aware as I am now. Oh, thank you, time. You've been so good to me. And so I'm sure I wouldn't not necessarily have had the sensitivity in the mid-80s to sort of, really dig into why this was such an objectionable song. But I think I always knew the reputation of it.
Yeah, I definitely didn't. I mean, not saying that I was a horrible oik or anything, but just wasn't that experienced about the world in general.
No, and it was. It's always feels bad to say things like, "Well, you just can't imagine what it was like in that time." But for our younger listeners, of which I'm sure we have many, the I always got that out with a straight face. There was, of course, it was a much less progressive time because that's the very definition of progress. Things are better now than they were. And a lot of the issues around the way that women were treated or the way that women would be portrayed in songs, those debates just didn't really exist then. Or if they did, they were in such a nascent form that it would be easy, especially for a young teenage boy, to just not really be aware of them. Things are much better now, and that's fantastic. But that cultural awareness and sensitivity around something like this, even although it always had a bad reputation, this lyric, it just wouldn't have been the same as it is now. Does that make me sound insufferably old and pompous?
How many episodes have we done now?
Point taken.
Yeah, okay. I think it's worth before I've got a bit of an admission of laziness to make in a moment, but I just did want to say a couple of other things about the song that we have the second instance on this album of an acoustic Wilburys style opening. Before the guitar line kicks in, it's very short. It's much shorter this one than the last one, but there is almost that sense of a young Jeff Lynne pricking up his ears, going, "Ooh, that's interesting." And I do really like. I don't know if I said it earlier. The na-na-nas on the fade out, and I just like listening to. At some point, I'm going to have to go back through all the Beatles songs that we've spoken about so far and just make a note of where they've done something interesting on an intro or a fade out, because I think it's just worth noting the sheer ingenuity of how they put these records together, and I'm including the production staff in that as well. Was there anything else related to the song itself that you wanted to mention before I do my humble lazy admission?
No, I don't think so. I think we probably covered all that. Please feel free to admit yourself.
I've been lazy. I didn't think anyone would be stupid enough to cover this song because of its lyrics, and I have established, dear listener, from the pre-recording conversation that people have. So for discussion about covers of Run for Your Life, I now hand you over to Mr. JG McQuarrie.
Thank you very much, good sir. Well, I'm only really going to talk about one cover because there aren't many, which is maybe not a massive surprise. But the one that really sticks out is by Nancy Sinatra. It's on the Boots album, and it comes out not that long after this. And it's kind of interesting in many ways, not least obviously it's gender flip, so she's singing boy, not girl, which takes a lot of the sting out of the lyric, to its benefit, it must be said. It's also got that big 60s kind of brass on it that there's some of it on, what was Nancy Sinatra's? These boots are made for walking, like that kind of big brassy stuff at the end, or a bit Shirley Bassey, or it's that kind of very 60s sort of brass, and she's really delivering it tongue in cheek. She's definitely not taking it seriously, and it's quite funny. She manages to get a bit of levity into it, which doesn't feel inappropriate. And again, the gender flip helps a wee bit there as well. It's not a one for the ages. If you're compiling a playlist of excellent Beatles covers versions, I'm not necessarily saying that you would want to include this one on it. But it is interesting, and I realise you've been lazy, and I accept your apology, even though it was not forthcoming. But I would encourage you to go and have a listen to it. It's only a couple of minutes long. It's not really any longer than the original song, but it really does try and do something different with it, and that's always the hallmark of an interesting cover version. It's not just replicating what the Beatles have done on the LP. Yeah, it's got that big 60s brass, it's gender flip, it's got the very knowing, very wink wink kind of tongue-in-cheek Mrs. Delivery, and it kind of gets away with it. It's an interesting listen.
Well, bear in mind this is the person who sang Something Stupid with her father.
Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If ever there was one.
It wouldn't surprise me if she's done a version of Je t'aime non plus with him as well at some point. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that Nancy Sinatra did that. By the way, did you know that his pop trivia, Something Stupid, was written by the brother of Van Dyke Parks, who obviously wrote a lot of Beach Boys songs with Brian Wilson. No, there you go. Fun facts that we've established today. Just like we'll see if we've got any China Crisis fans in our audience as well for the earlier 1980s reference. Okay. Well, I mean that's that. Yeah, I'll give it a listen. But I'm, gonna have to say, Nance, I'm a little disappointed with you, as disappointed as I am with my own inability to correctly name a female singer. Because I'm pretty sure in the last episode, Last episode, yeah, in the last episode, which I can't remember what song it was now, but
If I needed someone.
Yes, it could well be when I incorrectly identified Linda Ronstadt and should have correctly identified Emmy Lou Harris. So if anyone has emailed in the meantime to complain, that episode won't have been put out for a while. We are recording on the 30th of August, so I got there before you with my apology. Although I did think about just emailing you me saying Emmy Lou Harris and then seeing if you could drop that in. But, I'd rather admit my stupidity.
Fair enough. Narrator, nobody has.
Well, you haven't released it yet.
Well, no, I know. But nobody's going to. I'm making a prediction now.
But if I make a mistake, sometimes I like to acknowledge it.
Well, that's an excellent way of segueing back to the song that we're talking about.
Well, it is, and because some might say I made a mistake by giving You Can't Do That, I believe 7 out of 10. I think I was quite generous with that, overlooking the lyrical content because it's a darn good song.
Andrew, you gave it 8.
Sorry, everyone. Blimey, that huge generosity, but it's a darn good song. It's better than this. I think this is a really fun way of musically of ending the album. And I'm going to go with the caricature element. If I was to go with the Lennon, you're a dick, this was your misogynistic, violent nature coming up, and as much as you want to be an inspiration towards peace, you're also an inspiration toward violence, I would give this a minus 12 out of 10. I'm going to go 7.
7. There we go.
I like it. I've always liked it.
Yeah. What am I going to go with? 7 feels a little high, but 6 feels a little low. So I guess that would be a 6.5 then. Yeah.
I think if you look at it, if you compare it to some of the other songs on the album, it just feels like it's in the stronger side of things, and that's okay. That's okay. I realise that is a personal emotional response, but I'm just kind of looking down the track list and thinking there's a whole bunch of really, really good songs, but this one skews more towards the stronger side of things.
It's definitely a good album closer musically. I think that's undeniable. I think the album would feel really weird if it just ended on If I Needed Something, to say nothing of the actual length of time of the album. I mean, the album only runs for 35 minutes anyway. If you were to lose run for your 33 minutes, that even by 1965 standards, that's kind of taking the piss in terms of runtime. Not for our American listeners. We know you got short shrift in that one, but generally speaking, that's pretty short for an album.
But then, listener, you'll find out about what we think about the album in a little bit more detail when we get around to discussing that next time.
Yeah, that will be our very next episode. But I think we can probably leave it there for this one, unless you've got any other points you'd like to make before we bow out.
No, I am all done.
Lovely. Well, in that case, you can really get a hold of us. You can contact us by email. We are BeatlesStuffology@gmail.com. If you want to tell us how incredibly right we are, that's always appreciated. If you want to tell us how incredibly wrong we are, well, it's always appreciated as well. We're also in the smoking remains of Twitter @Beatles_ology. We are Beatles Stuffology on Instagram, and you can find my blog at www.jgmcquarrie.scot, where I talk about books and films and TV shows and computer games and just whatever I fancy talking about, really. Please like, rate, and review us on whatever podcatcher you are using so that more people can find the show. As Andrew said, next time out, we will be discussing the entirety of the album. And as always, we hope you're going to join us for it. But until then, keep listening.